How's it going, everybody? So we have a fun review today as we're talking Salem's Lot. I gotta say, for a while there, I wasn't entirely sure if this movie would ever actually come out. If you don't remember, during that shuffling around Warner Brothers Discovery was doing, they were deleting movies out of existence for tax breaks, and in that time frame, Salem's Lot taken off the release schedule entirely. I mean, they basically filmed this movie 3 years ago, so I'm considering it a small win that it's even getting a release at all, even if it is going to be released on Max. When an author returns to his childhood home of Jerusalem's Lot in search of inspiration for his next book, soon he discovers that his hometown is being preyed upon by a bloodthirsty vampire. I've always considered myself a pretty big Stephen King fan. In the other room, I literally have an entire bookshelf dedicated to his books, and Salem's Lot the novel, along with the 1979 miniseries from Tobe Hooper, isn't my favorite by any means. I think for the most part it is a very solid vampire story, so it played an active role in my interest what a new spin could offer. With the fact that the release of this movie has been so messy for several years now, you would have to assume this movie was borderline unwatchable, but I don't think that's the case. Nowadays, it feels sort of rare to have a film actively attempt to create effective, scary vampires, and Salem's Lot does a pretty good job building exactly that. Tension takes its time to slowly build up dread and an all-around creepy atmosphere from the moment the vampire attacks within the town with Barlow's arrival. At first, the terror is very subtle, with a few select isolated vampire attacks, an extensive usage of fog that rolls in to really set the mood. Gradually over time, this story really ramps up, till letting loose in a big fantastical climax that definitely is the largest change in comparison to the novel or the miniseries. More than likely, if you're a big fan of horror, you're aware of writer-director Gary Dauberman's work. Whether you know it or not, he helped write It Chapter 1 and 2, and more famously, he is a big architect in creating the Conjuring universe, and that styling of the Conjuring universe is very prevalent in the horror here, so take that for what it's worth, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. For me, as someone that does enjoy the Conjuring universe for the most part, I would say it's definitely more pros than cons. For as much as I loved how he would craft these big, scary, vampire-centric set pieces, like the finale at the drive-in, or especially that shot where Ben realizes that all the vampires are surrounding him across the buildings, there's also a multitude of shots where Gary Dauberman uses shadows to effectively make scenes more creepy visually. At the very same time, the Conjuring universe staples that you don't like also kind of showed their head too. The predictability aspect, like someone walks down a dark, narrow corridor so someone can jump out of the darkness followed by a loud noise. One of my favorite shots, though, it's kind of random and isn't even horror related, but it's this transition shot of someone opening a book that switches over to someone opening a peanut butter jelly sandwich. I was pretty surprised to learn that this movie is rated R because it really isn't that gruesome. Most of the more horrific stuff is off screen. Blood-wise, there's not too much blood to be had for it being a movie surrounding vampires. The most blood you'll probably see in the entire movie is someone tearing open a blood pack in a hospital. They sort of make up for it, though, with a lot of people on fire. There's a lot of vampires that catch on fire in this, and those stunts are always exciting. Coolest kill for me, though, probably was a POV shot from the back of someone's mouth after being stabbed through it. While Salem's Lot does take its time to put the pieces in place for the story, build up the characters, around the midway point is when the story truly starts to hook you in part since it's when the characters' beliefs shift from skepticism to panic once they have to deal with the threat, since over time this town starts to feel emptier and more isolated. Also, the characters we follow range in quality. Lewis Pullman, of course, is the protagonist, Ben Mears, the author returning home, befriending everyone in town. Mostly everything I've seen Lewis Pullman in, I've enjoyed his performance here, but more or less, a lot of the time he is kind of a side character, and now taking the lead, I was definitely more mixed than usual. He has this timid, mild-mannered demeanor that somewhat invests you in the character and this budding romance he has in the town, but he's almost too timid to a fault for being the main protagonist. It takes a very long time and someone close to him getting bit for him to really show much agency to all the events surrounding him. Once he gets to that point in the third act, I thought he was actually pretty solid, but he's definitely not my favorite character amongst the bunch. I do have to give a big shout out to Alfree Woodard just because I thought her character was great, the skeptical doctor in the town. Kid performances, you know, they are usually hit or miss in projects, but I overall liked Mark a lot in this. It was awesome seeing this badass kid who has no fear whatsoever. Honestly, he is the most assertive person in the entire film as far as going out and trying to hunt vampires, whether it be Barlow or his friend that comes to him at his window in similar fashion to the miniseries, which is a very creepy recreation of that scene, although I don't think it's as creepy as the 1979 miniseries. Speaking of that kid, by the way, that is the major realization you can tell that they filmed this movie so many years ago now if you just look at Nicholas Crevetti. If you're a big fan of the show The Boys, you'll probably recognize him as Homelander's son on there, and he looks so much younger in this. At this point in time, almost every single time I see Pilou Asbæk on screen, I just know he's going to be playing some type of freak. You can tell he's having a lot of fun with his performance. Every single sequence he's in, he's camping it up, being a real fun weirdo, dressed up like they just ripped him out of Red Dead Redemption. My only major complaint with him is the fact that he's not in the movie enough. Same with Barlow, who at the very least is sprinkled throughout with quick glimpses until the full reveal in the last act, which is a very Conjuring-like thing to do with its antagonist. The approach here for Barlow is kind of a happy compromise between the miniseries and the novel. His look in this is genuinely pretty scary and an awesome updated look from the miniseries, but he also did have a couple lines of dialogue in this, although he's not superly chatty or anything, so don't expect him to have full-on monologues, but he has a couple lines. Obviously, there's far less time in this compared to the miniseries, so it feels more or less like a streamlined version of events hitting most of the beats that you would expect from Salem's Lot. As I said before, it does take some time to build that momentum, but it felt worth it in the end, especially the finale, which keeps most of the core ingredients of the ending. But I can't say enough, probably my favorite sequence of the entire movie is the drive-in theater sequence. I think it's just super creative and has a lot of exciting intensity to it. While Salem's Lot doesn't break new ground for the horror genre or anything, it's a very solid adaptation that brings just the right fun, scary ingredients. Seriously baffling to me that they would just dump this on Max in October as opposed to releasing it in theaters, because I do think for the most part this movie would hit really well in a theater setting with a bunch of other people around you. Regardless of the fact that it's rated R, there's probably a couple scenes you could just tweak in this and it would very easily be PG-13, but even as is, I think it still would have done pretty well in theaters, so it's kind of a shame. I don't know what Warner Brothers Discovery's doing here, but would you get a chance to check it out when it hits Max Thursday, October 3rd? I would love to know your thoughts down below. What did you think of Salem's Lot? Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? Share all your thoughts down below, because the fun is that conversation with you guys in the comment section. Thank you guys, as always, checking out videos. I always do appreciate it. Make sure to like on the video and also subscribe to the channel to update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. But next time, I'll see you guys later.